A viewer recently commented that she's been following my Eat More, Move More approach for the last 4 months, but she's steadily gaining a pound every 2 to 3 weeks. She went from 1,400 to 1,850 calories, and she's 5'6", 207 pounds, and postmenopausal. Now, if you're new to my channel, you may be thinking, well, of course she's gaining weight, she's eating more. But that's not how we do things around here. On this side of YouTube, we move like the strong, confident women we are. Women who are sick of starving ourselves only to regain every pound. But that also doesn't mean that she should just keep going no matter how high her scale climbs. Because we still want the lean bodies that we are putting in all of the work for. As someone who spent decades trapped in the never-ending move more, eat less cycle, I went from starving myself on 1,300 calories to eating nearly double while weighing 50 pounds less. And if I can do it, I know it is absolutely possible for you too. But here's what most people don't understand about eating more to lose fat. It's not magic. You can't just increase calories and expect your body to cooperate without putting in the actual work that makes eating more possible. And that's not me saying that anything this viewer is doing is wrong, because sometimes gaining weight on a fat loss diet can be a good thing. But we'll get back to that in a minute. First, let's get into the 5 critical mistakes that could be sabotaging your results, even if you think you're doing everything right. Because the difference between gaining weight and losing fat with this approach comes down to these specific details that most women completely miss. Before we talk about the first mistake, let me ask you a question. If I asked for your exact calorie average from last week, along with your daily protein, step count, and how that affected your weekly weight trend, could you give me your numbers? Because if you can't tell me all of those stats in under 10 seconds, then you're not actually tracking, which is the first mistake most women make. You think you're tracking when you're really still just guessing. And here's the brutal truth about why this one mistake could be sabotaging months worth of effort. Eating more to lose fat only works when you're accurately measuring calories in, calories out, protein, steps, and weekly weight trends. But most women track sporadically, guessing by dinner, skipping weekends, and swearing that they hit their step goal because they walked every day, but never really checking the actual numbers. Here's the thing. My scale didn't move either when I blindly followed these same habits. I mean, unless you count moving up, because that absolutely happened. But once I reined things in, strictly monitoring calories in, calories out, protein, steps, and how all of this affected my weekly weight average, that's when I consistently lost weight, adding up to 50 pounds. And now that I continue to track all of the same metrics, which really only takes less than 5 minutes a day, that's when the weight finally stayed off. So when I track and see that I lost 0.91 pounds in a week while averaging 2,147 calories a day, that's when I know my slow and steady fat loss plan is working. But if you're still just eating healthy and hoping for the best, that's not enough to lose fat, at least not on a consistent basis. But when you track your actual data, well, data works way better than hope. So if you're still not tracking every day, you're not actually following a fat loss plan. You're just eating more and hoping that it works out, which it won't, just in case you're still not sure. But if you're doing all of that and still gaining, you could be making this next mistake. Just eyeballing the numbers I was given, as someone who's 5'6", postmenopausal, and 207 pounds, eating 1,850 calories a day sounds absolutely reasonable. But that doesn't mean that you will automatically lose fat. Because if you're eating like an athlete while moving like a couch potato, this could be exactly why your scale is slowly climbing. Running the numbers, you need a minimum of 4 to 6 hours of moderately intense exercise each week in order to eat that much while still losing fat. But here's where a lot of women get confused. Moderate activity isn't a daily casual stroll. And it's definitely not showing up to the gym 2 to 3 days each week, but spending most of that time scrolling your phone or chatting with friends. If you want to eat more to lose weight, then you need real consistent movement in order to support your moderate calorie deficit. When I lost 50 pounds while eating 2,000 calories a day, I was walking 10,000 steps most days while strength training 3 to 5 days each week. But I wasn't just casually shuffling my feet back and forth while brushing my teeth in order to hit those 10,000 steps. A big chunk was brisk walking, usually on an inclined treadmill, because that moderate activity burns nearly double the calories of a casual stroll. And when I was in the gym, I was locked in, working on lifting heavier or adding more reps each week. That's how I earned the right to eat more while losing fat. If you're eating 1,850 calories, but only doing light activity, then you're still eating too much for your current lifestyle. To make this work, you either need to rev up your activity to match your calories, or you just have to accept that you'll need to eat less. Because fat loss at its core is a math problem. And if the math ain't mathing, then you're not losing. Here's what 4 to 6 hours of moderate exercise actually looks like. 45 minutes of brisk walking 5 to 6 days each week, plus 2 to 3 strength training sessions. Or you could do 60 to 90 minutes of walking most days if you're not lifting weights yet. And I say yet because if you want to keep everything you lose off, you do need to lift weights at some point. And the sooner, the better. Now, if this sounds too extreme, I promise you it's not. This is what's required to support eating 1,850 calories while losing fat for a woman with these stats. Eating more to lose more is absolutely possible. You just have to build a metabolism that's strong enough to support this lifestyle. But if you're still frustrated because you are doing everything that we just talked about, then you could be making this next big mistake that leads to most women quitting long before getting the results you want, especially if you're brand new to strength training. If you've never lifted weights before, gaining a pound every few weeks could mean that you're making really good progress. But you'll never know if you're just relying on the scale. Obsessing over that one number while completely ignoring what's actually happening to your body, that will make you quit right before all of the magic happens. So if you can't rely on the scale, then how do you know if what you're doing is even working? Now, I know that you've heard this hundreds of times before, but this time I want you to actually hear it because it's really important. Are you taking monthly progress photos? Measurements around your belly? Are you getting stronger in the gym every week? And how are your clothes fitting? If your clothes are getting looser, you're lifting heavier weights consistently, you notice small changes in monthly photos, and your belly shrinks even if it's just by an inch, that means you are gaining muscle while losing fat, even if your scale never changes, which is exactly what you want. When I first got started, I didn't lose a single pound for the first 3 months. Look at my progress photos. My weight average was only down 0.6 pounds from April through July. But when you actually look at the photos, even though my scale wasn't moving, my clothing size was dropping. These aren't the dramatic before and after photos that you see splashed all over social media, but they were the start of me losing 50 pounds. And unlike far too many of those dramatic transformations, I actually kept my weight off. Stop letting the scale be the only judge of your success. If you're getting stronger and your clothes are fitting better, then you are doing all of the right things, even if the number isn't dropping as fast as you want it to. The only way to get your weight into a healthy range is to keep going and to have patience while you're doing the work that you need to do. But if you're like our commenter who is steadily gaining a pound every few weeks, then maybe you're wondering just how much patience do you have to have? Like, when is enough enough? But here's why I can't give this viewer an accurate answer like I could if she was my coaching client. Even though she was brave enough to list her height, age, and weight on YouTube, that's still not really enough information to know when she should expect results. Something you have to ask yourself before figuring out if you should switch things up is, where was your starting point? Are you brand new to weight loss? Or have you spent years in restrictive diets and now you have to give your metabolism time to heal? Because if you're the latter, then you will need way more patience. And that's just how it has to be for at least a little while. But quitting completely or destroying your metabolism even more by rushing the process won't make things go any faster. If you're coming from years of cutting carbs to force very low calories like I was, your body doesn't trust you yet. It thinks that this is just another trick before you starve it again. Metabolic healing can take 3 to 6 months. What you see in these photos, where I clearly lost fat even though my scale didn't move, that wasn't my actual beginning. I spent months before this trying everything I could think of to get my scale to budge. But when none of that worked, I finally figured out that I had to take a break from diets altogether in order to allow my metabolism to heal. But that doesn't mean that I just threw caution to the wind and ate anything I wanted. I still had to focus on whole food nutrition with way more protein to allow my body to heal. But these photos are when I started tracking progress, not when my healing journey began. And then, even when I did track, my scale didn't budge. But that's because I was finally doing the right things for long-term fat loss instead of throwing myself into another quick fix starvation diet. I was regaining the muscle I lost from years of low-calorie diets while my body slowly let go of the fat that I regained, also from years of low-calorie diets. Your body might be doing the exact same thing right now. It could be prioritizing muscle gain over fat loss initially, which is beneficial long-term, but it is so frustrating in the short term. Especially when you're postmenopausal, your body needs time to adjust to this new way of eating and moving. Your only real choice is to have patience with the whole process. Your metabolism is rebuilding itself, and that just takes time. But fixing every single one of these mistakes will not work if you aren't putting this last piece of the fat loss puzzle into place. When you're a postmenopausal woman, sustainable fat loss comes down to more than just calories in versus calories out. And if you're ignoring the foundation that makes everything else work, then you'll stay stuck. But here's the harsh truth that no one with any kind of life responsibilities wants to hear. Sleep and stress management aren't optional. They are absolutely required for successful fat loss. Poor sleep and chronic stress spike cortisol, which makes your body hold on to fat no matter how perfect your calories are. If you're not prioritizing 7+ hours of sleep and figuring out ways to manage daily stress, then you are fighting an uphill battle. Even worse, chronic stress increases water retention, making it look like you're gaining fat when you're really just holding on to extra water. This is especially true if you recently increased exercise intensity because your body might be inflamed from all of that added stress. Plus, if you're not eating enough protein throughout the day or getting the right post-workout nutrition, then you're limiting the muscle building benefits that make eating more possible. All of these factors work together. You can't just focus on calories and exercise while ignoring sleep, stress, and recovery. Everything has to work together as a system. Eating more to lose fat isn't some magic trick. It's a strategy that requires precision and patience. If you're gaining weight instead of losing it, you could be missing at least one of these 5 pieces. The good news is, now you know exactly what to fix. Be sure you're accurately tracking everything that matters: calories, protein, steps, and weekly weight trends. Match your exercise intensity to your calorie intake. Take progress photos and measurements instead of giving all of your power to the scale. Give your body time to heal from years of restrictive dieting. And prioritize sleep and stress management like your results depend on it, because they absolutely do. The woman who commits to doing this right doesn't just lose weight. She builds a metabolism that works for her instead of always working against her. So after watching this, are you making any of these mistakes? Let me know in the comments which ones. And if you're not currently following a fat loss system that allows you to eat more while still losing consistently, then watch this video next. I'll show you the exact system that helped me lose 50 pounds over 40 while eating nearly double what I ate when I was 50 pounds heavier.